Hello, I'm Jim Riley, and welcome to the latest edition of Salute the Vets. I have a very special guest with me today, World War II veteran Ralph Avery. Ralph, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
I'm very pleased you came to join us again. I'm honored to meet you. It's a privilege to be sitting here today and talking with you. D-Day.
Yes, sir.
You were there.
Yes, sir.
Now, before we went on the air, you were giving me a little overview of conditions and how things... Why don't you go back and start there for us?
Well, I think to begin with, the day was so bad. This was June 5th, or the night of June 5th, and the weather was terrible. The channel was so rough. I had white caps on the channel, and these flat-bottom boats with 30-ton tanks on just didn't work.
Yeah.
So Eisenhower got the whole flotilla out in the middle of the channel, saw it was that bad, and the whole flotilla turned around and went back to the...
Just wasn't possible to continue.
You couldn't get over there. The equipment would be so messed up that we wouldn't have been able to do anything. So we went back, and on the morning of June 6th,
right,
we started for Omaha Beach.
And that's where you went, in Omaha Beach. Again, just to be specific, so you know the story that we're telling here, this is D-Day. This is the great landing in Europe that Americans made such a huge sacrifice. We'll talk about the cemetery later. Mm-hmm. But back to your thing, morning of the 6th.
Well, we had five beaches. You mentioned them before: Utah, Omaha, Gold, Sword, and Juneau.
Right.
That took up 20 miles of beachhead.
Across?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And every bit of that 20 miles had pillboxes. It had mines on the landing beaches, and it had that whole half of that channel had nothing but mines in it.
Right.
So anyway...
So that part, I have to tell you, that's something I didn't realize.
Yes.
The channel actually had mines out in the water as well.
Yes.
Because usually you're just talking about the beachhead, but this was out in the water as well as you're trying to make the landing.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, and the UDTs, the underwater demolition teams, that was their job, to clean enough mine to let these invasion forces in.
Right.
And those poor guys, they deserve an awful lot of credit as under the conditions they were working in. But halfway into the beach, we had a control ship hit a mine, and our control ship sunk.
So you did lose your ship there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, went right down the bottom.
Now, when you say control ship, what was their function?
Well, they kept us in line, getting us into Fox Green Beach and on Omaha Beach.
So they were directing you.
They were the traffic cops.
Right, got it.
In the water.
The water,
yes,
yeah.
Sir.
All right, good.
Once that went down, we were lost because it was pitch black. And the only communication they had was these old-fashioned bullhorns. You just speak like a megaphone.
Right. And in those conditions, that had to be very difficult.
It's terrible. You could barely hear somebody with the wind and the rain.
Right. Because the conditions were very difficult.
Yes. Plus, like I say, with those 4 30-ton tanks on that boat, that didn't work out too well either. Right. But and crews, it was 2 or 3, 4 men to each one of the tanks. Crews, so they were with us also. But we did manage to get to the middle of the channel, and we dropped the ramp, put the ramp down. That water was probably 2 foot deep on the... Yeah, it would have to be. On the tank deck. It just washed right in that big open hatch. But anyway, the tankers were ready to go. We had 4, like I said before, 4 of the Sherman tanks on. So one pulled up out to the ramp, down the ramp, and we never saw him again. It just went right down to the bottom. Yeah. It was just so choppy. And the tank behind him, same thing. So Skipper said, pull the ramp up. He says, we're going to take these guys in. There's no sense of dumping them out in the channel. So we took them right on into Omaha Beach.
But the cannon fire, rocket fire, mortar, it must have been brutal on you guys if you went all the way into the beach.
They had an 88. This was down on Utah Beach.
Right.
That every one of their tanks that did land was knocked out with that 88.
Right.
And now, don't hold me to this, but I think there was 32 tanks all together.
Right.
32 or...
Well,
36
that's probably, 32, 36 is probably the number.
Yes.
Yeah.
And out of those 32 or 36, 2 of them got on the beach.
Yeah. And again, I don't want to take it out of context, but the film, The Longest Day, depicted, and I'm sure not even close to how it really was, but it's miraculous that you had any success at all.
Yes. Yeah, well...
So 2 out of 36.
Yes.
Is all that made it.
Yeah. And that 88 knocked out one of them. The other one, I just don't remember what. But that's the only support that the 69th Infantry had, fire support.
Right, to help them as they try to get inland. Yeah.
See, the idea was to put those tanks on the beach and support that infantry coming in.
That can come up behind them.
But as it was, the infantry was getting in before these tanks could even move.
Right.
It was so bad. So those poor guys in that first wave, they had no...
They had no chance.
No.
They had no chance at all.
They told me 2,500, but...
Was the number, but it had to be more than that,
yes,
I would think.
Yes.
The casualty had to be, and we're not even talking about wounded now, we're talking about outright deaths and casualties at 2,500.
Yes.
And again, I think that number's low, don't you?
Oh, yes.
It has to be.
I mean, you could double that easy.
Yeah.
And thank God for the medics. Those poor guys with the crosses on their
helmet, yeah.
And that didn't last. The German snipers were shooting those guys with the crosses on their head.
Yeah, it almost gave them a target, and they knew what their function was.
Yes. Yeah.
They knew that.
Yes.
And if they could eliminate them, they could eliminate a lot more soldiers because they weren't going to get the support and aid.
Those guys bleeding to death, arms off, legs off, and just screaming. Then, getting back to the channel, once we put those tanks off, those guys were on their own, and they were paddling around in that channel, screaming for help, and no way could that whole flotilla stop and pick these guys up.
No, that's the thing that's hard to imagine. Yeah. When you're in an environment like that, you really are on your own, and you just have to find a way to survive.
Yeah, we was just dodging the guys in the water. They were paddling and screaming.
Right.
And 70 years, every once in a while, I still hear it.
Oh yeah, it never goes away, does it?
No.
And you were under attack this whole time as well.
From the time we got to the middle of that channel and starting into the minefield, because we lost quite a few tanks that these underwater demolition teams couldn't get everyone out. Right. And when we went into the beach, we slid up on top of a mine, but that wasn't too bad. It either didn't detonate right or it was a small mine, blew a hole in the ship.
Right.
But we was right onto the beach, so we just sat there.
Right.
And later on that day, they had Seabees that worked the beach.
These are the construction guys.
Yes.
Right, the Navy Seabees.
They welded a patch right onto the hole and pumped our tanks out.
Right.
And we was pretty well set to go back.
Right, so you could get back out of there.
Yes, sir. But up until dark, I mean, the Germans was just unmerciful. The firepower that they...
And they were up on the peaks up on top, firing down. They had the optimal position, unfortunately, at that time.
Yes, well, looking down, they was up this place called Point de Hoc.
Right.
And they had 88s up there.
And very, very powerful.
If you ever hear one fire, you'll never forget it.
Yeah.
I never heard a noise like that. they had very good equipment.
Yes.
Very good equipment. Their tanks, they had the Tiger tanks. That wasn't too much of a success. But everything else, like I say, their guns, the Mausers, the 98 Mauser.
Right, that was
in fact, I brought one home.
Oh, you did?
Yes,
you
sir.
You did, okay.
That and a German helmet. I didn't bring his head with it.
No, I thought about it, but
just
brought the helmet. But those 88s, that's a kind, it would strike fear in your heart, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't have to hit you. You just hear it.
Just hearing it, and it just quake with terror, yeah.
But, and that thing was accurate. I trained, now, I don't want to tell you something that's not true. I trained, I wanted to be a gunner's mate.
Right.
I liked the guns. And before the invasion, I took tests, and I had to qualify on a 5-inch 38 caliber gun.
Right.
And a little bit bigger than what we had on the landing. We had 20 millimeters on
That's what you had on your landing craft? Yeah.
Yes. That was great. I knew how to take one down. You had to do it in the dark so you could feel the pieces.
So you know what, because we talked about the conditions on that day. That's why they train you that way.
Yes. You couldn't stand there with a flashlight.
Right. Excuse me, could somebody put a light on this? Yeah. So I could take care of this? Yeah.
And I somehow got aboard the USS Cory. That was a DD destroyer.
Right.
And I practiced on, they had 5-inch 38s, 5-inch 38s on, they had 2 bow mounts and I think 2 stern. Right. I think they had 4 guns on there, double mounts. And I trained on them. Then they were getting ready for the invasion. And I had my rate, I had my 3rd class petty officer rate, and that's what they were taking for the for the invasion.
Isn't that interesting that once you're qualified and you have this rate, I'm sorry, those are the ones we're taking, so you wind up on the invasion. But
I would gladly give the rate up.
Yeah. Let me trade this. Yeah. But it's just the heroism is hard to believe, isn't it? It really is.
Man.
To take on something like that, knowing that your odds are not very good. Do you ever reflect on that on occasion, Ralph?
Oh,
How in the world you ever got through that and got out of there? Because so many didn't.
A lot of mornings I'll sit there at the breakfast table and Dad will say, "What are you doing?" And that's what I'm doing. I'm thinking,
right?
How did I? Only thing I got was a little piece of scratch in my thumb.
Amazing.
But it got infected.
Yeah.
And I got a thumb this big.
Yeah.
So Skipper said, we better get you off here and on to. We had a hospital ship that stayed right on Omaha Beach.
Yeah. Okay, it stayed on the beach.
Yeah, had a big red cross on it.
Yeah.
So they put me aboard that. The storm was still there. The weather was terrible. I think I was on there for about a week. What they did, they lanced, and I guess it was pieces of that stuff in there.
Right, just got embedded and stayed there.
Had blood poison, I guess.
Yeah.
But I can't believe that was the only thing.
It's hard to imagine. And again, it's the chances are everybody could have gone. I mean, it was just a brutal exercise, but something that had to be done.
Yeah.
Do you feel like a hero?
No, sir. No. The heroes are under the crosses.
Yeah. Oh, let's talk about that for a second. Where is that? Now, I know it's up there in Normandy, the cemetery.
Back at Omaha Beach.
It's near Omaha Beach.
Well, that was the one. Now, there's probably more, because there's thousands and thousands buried there.
Right,
but the one that Dot and I went to when we went.
You did go back?
Yes.
Yes,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah. She wanted to go to Paris for one of the anniversaries we had.
Right.
And she says, I want you to go back to Normandy. So it kind of.
Oh, yeah, you have to do it.
Yes.
If you go to France, you have to go up there.
Yes.
Now, did you see any of the crosses of your mates or any people that you knew, or just it was all of the guys who were there?
I probably spent 2 or 3 hours in that cemetery. And, on a trip like you don't have too much time to.
Right. Unfortunately, you don't.
That's why I'm kind of anxious to get back again. I looked. I didn't see anything look familiar. But a buddy of mine, he was in what they call the Big Red One.
Yes.
Yeah. His name's Harold.
Dot, you got a name for us?
Dot.
Dot.
What's Harold's last name?
Williams.
Williams.
Harold Williams. Okay.
Harold
That's why
Williams.
we have Dot on the sidelines.
Yes, sir.
She's our reference. She's our reference
We'll
person.
never make it without her.
Without her.
believe
We
me.
got Harold Williams. Okay.
So Harold and I's good buddies.
Yeah.
But, we probably were shoulder to shoulder on Omaha Beach and never knew it.
Isn't that's the other thing that's amazing, that how life works out, and you were there and never even knew it.
No. And it was quite a few years after both of us was discharged that we got together. And, of course, he said Omaha and I said Omaha, and we started crying.
Oh, yeah.
And
oh, you would.
Yeah.
Bring back that flood of memories.
Yeah.
I have to say that as I told you, I served in France. Mm-hmm. So I went up and saw the cemeteries, and you get a real understanding of what the sacrifice was.
Yes.
And that's how you felt when you went back, wasn't it?
Yep. And it's funny because he did too, so it must be right if two guys do it. If I do it alone, but if somebody else does it too, it must be right.
I think so. And the other thing is, for our viewers out there, and again, I'm sorry, I'm going to use the word hero again. Please don't be offended. But the fact is, I don't think any of us who've not had the experience, I served as a vet, but I was not in combat, can really understand what that day was like, can they? It's not possible.
Nobody will ever know that the few left. And they don't like to talk about it.
No.
I don't talk about it that much. It seems lately, and the older I get, the more I do talk about it.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
Well, I think, though, that you get past that block. I think there's a block that such an emotional impact on you as an individual to be in that environment that you don't want to try to explain it because it's not explainable. You can't do that. Right. But when you get older, I think we relax the restrictions on ourselves a bit and realize you have to get it out. I think it's important for us to share it with our viewers.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And I think they need to know that a great sacrifice was made on that day. For the benefit of the people who lived in Europe, it was terribly important.
It might have been entirely different if they did lose that beach. You know, if they lost Omaha, that would have been chain reaction right on up to...
No, you may in fact have lost the war.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is something that, again, you can't take it out of historical context. It was that important.
And I read in the book, they said that USS Cory and the Fitch, F-I-T-C-H.
Right.
That was a destroyer also. That was the only two destroyers on Omaha Beach that I know of. No, I might be wrong, but that's the only two. And all they did was back and forth on that beach with their 5-inch guns.
Right.
And that took
giving support.
That took the place of the mistake that we... Well, it was a mistake.
Just the reality of what happened.
What happened to us. We just couldn't get those tanks in there.
Couldn't get them in there.
But back at Utah Beach was another 88, 16 miles away. It hit that USS Cory in the engine room, and it blew it up and it broke the spine of the ship. And they said it sunk within a half hour.
Oh, I'll bet.
With an awful lot of casualties on it.
Terrible.
But that was terrible. Because like I say, that I'm sure that and the fish, they kind of saved the day.
Oh, yeah,
for
and you can imagine what it would have been like without that support.
I don't think we ever would have made it.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think we would have. And what we got in there was, those mines still were hot. That the Seabees, they did an awful good job. I'm sure they helped, clean that beach up.
Well, the interesting thing about Seabees is we think of them in the way of construction.
Yes.
We don't think that they would be in this environment at the landing at Normandy on D-Day, but they were and did very important work.
Yes. I'm sure they worked with the underwater demolition teams, the ones that took them out of the water, and then, because every place they stepped, you could hear an explosion.
Absolutely true. Unbelievable. Ralph Avery, thank you so much for joining us today. I have to tell you, whether you like the term or not, hero is certainly applicable to you. D-Day landing in Normandy, June 6, 1944.
Yes.
Ralph Avery, American hero, all-around nice guy. Thank you so much for your time, Ralph.
Thank you,
appreciate
sir,
it.
for listening. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Salute the Vets. Our thanks to Ralph Avery, not only a U.S. Navy veteran, but somebody who landed on the beaches at Normandy on D-Day, June 6, 1944. We look forward to having you again joining us real soon on Salute the Vets.
We're at it again here at Crossroads Ford. I see you went with the Ford Escape.
Yes, I took it for a test ride and I love it. It has the navigation and the sync features which I was looking for.
The sync features. Let's go talk to someone in the service department. What kind of cars do you work on?
Fords, Subarus, Chevys.
So basically anything with 4 wheels, right?
Absolutely.
I got a go-kart needs a tune-up.
Bring it in. We can do it.
I'm Ron Teeter, owner of Crossroads Ford. You gotta give us a try.
I remember the moment clearly.
I'll never forget that moment.
As long as I live.
I realized at that moment, when we first saw the damage, these people really needed us. And I was going to make a difference, right here in my community. Together with local responders, we cleared trees and collapsed walls. We had to get to the family trapped beneath. As a citizen soldier, I made a difference.
Be there for your community at NationalGuard.com.
Looking to spice up your table? Mid-Hudson Cable invites you to travel with us and meet the chef. Join host Jim Riley as he gives you an intimate look at some of the area's best eateries, from the burger joint down the street to a 4-star restaurant. Meet the people behind the scenes who prepare some of the best dishes in the area. Thursday and Sunday at 8 p.m., Saturday at 11 and 8 p.m., with a new episode each month, only on Channel 11. Meet the Chef, available exclusively on Mid-Hudson Cable.